How's it going, guys? I take the stairs because I choose to understand differences rather than separating them.
I take the stairs because healthy communication is the soil where growth takes root.
I take the stairs because in a world that can often feel bleak, I'd like to remind people that there's always hope, and I never want them to feel alone on their journey.
I take the stairs because shortcuts don't build strength. Every step is a choice to grow, be patient, and rise.
Hello, and welcome back to We Take the Stairs.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Hello.
guys.
Hi.
It's our last episode of the season.
It is.
Yeah.
Today we're actually closing our first season, and we're going to be back with a new season and a few new faces. So we hope you join us then. We're going to have a 6-session look at women's issues, like we've been focusing on men's issues this season. But next we're gonna sort of look through the looking glass of how females view the world.
Are you excited about that?
Yeah, I think I'm like more excited when I'm learning something new. For me, I'm a girl, so
You will be still learning new
You're right.
things.
I'm going to understand how other women view things. So yes, I am.
Yeah.
So thank you. Yep. And so in between the two sessions, the two seasons, we're going to have some sessions called Let's Break Bread, where I'm going to go travel around and speak to people about what we have, in fact, spoken about this season. So I'm actually really excited about it because we want to hear people's opinions, especially those who listen to us, and we hope to gather feedback that will help us to stay attuned to how we can best be of service through God's Word. But actually, before we begin with today's scripture, I wanted to just one more time live in a moment of gratitude. And I want to thank each of you for your contribution this season. And I know that everybody gave of their time and spoke from their heart. And sometimes that's not easy. And I just want to thank you because you guys have just really, you've given me a lot to think about. And I came into this room on the first day and I loved you all for who you are. And now I have a whole other notch of respect and understanding. So I just wanted to thank you for coming on here and talking to me.
Thank you for making it happen.
Making it happen for sure.
Yeah.
We appreciate
It's been
it.
great.
So today we're actually going to be discussing men and marriage/relationships and their view and on those two topics. So the scripture chosen for today, the two of them that I've chosen go hand in hand, but not in a way that you might expect. For millennia, Ephesians, wives submit to your husband as to the Lord, has been a topic of debate. And because I was born in the United States and Western culture is the norm, the term submit often chafes me in a way that I think many women can relate to. So I did some digging and some research. The term that is widely used in Ephesians 5:22 is telling women to submit. It was actually a Greek word that I'm about to botch, but I'm saying it anyway. Hupotasso. This was actually a term used to direct the arranging of troops in an ordered formation. In the context of marriage, it is often translated as submit, but most likely conveyed more of an allowance of leadership, like a deferment, or being a support for the husband. Similarly, Ephesians 5:25 says, "Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her to make her holy." I don't think there's as much of a misinterpretation in that verse, but it does beg the question that surrounds our topic today. How do men view marriage and relationships? So with that, men and relationships.
I dive right into this one because submission, like intimacy, Junior, has it's like a dirty word.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be, because from a biblical principle, I believe that submission is a response to consistency. And it should be a response to consistency. The wife should submit to her husband for him being consistently submitted to God.
Is that to allow him his leadership of the family or?
Yes,
Okay.
but that starts with him leading in his submission
to God
Right.
consistently.
Okay. Makes sense.
I think consistency separates a winning husband from a wannabe. Showing up every day, it's hard. But with your helper, hard things work. It's why it's super important to pick the right helper.
And the right leader.
And the right leader.
Yeah.
And follow the right leader, absolutely.
Right.
Because we are one. The union, the covenant, not a contract. The covenant makes you one. And in that union, it's not one person, but one union. Both people bearing the weight of life. And life is not easy.
No,
Yeah.
I agree with you. Well said.
What do we think the biggest challenges are when just considering that process of finding someone that you are willing and able and moved to yoke yourself with and build a life with? Like, what are the biggest hurdles that you guys have found just in your experience growing up and dealing with relationships? What do you think the most challenging, obstacle is, or most challenging obstacles are when approaching that selection process? Because that is what it is. It's a selection process where you go through life and you are kind of deducing and looking at criteria and saying, this is definitely what I know I'm not going to accept, and this is what I absolutely won't bend on. I need someone with this quality or these qualities, and these are things that I'm, unmovable on. So how has that been for y'all to look forward and say, one day I'm going to be someone's husband, and this is what I'm looking for in a partner? And also, I guess on the flip side of that, what are some of the things like within yourselves that you've had to address as, internal or personal hurdles in working toward making that decision in your life?
I think personally, my biggest hurdle was not knowing who I was. And I think a lot of young men and men in general should take time to learn who they truly are in Christ, and not look for outside sources to tell you or to define who you are. Again, I grew up in a space where my dad wasn't home. I had some good men in my life. I had a great grandfather. Didn't have the best role models in some of my uncles, and I had a loving family, but just from a manly, godly perspective,
Right.
I wouldn't say I would want to take after any of them as a husband. Besides my grandfather, I think he did a pretty solid job. But I looked to outside sources to, it was about aesthetics. She's bad, or she looks, her
Right.
looks and the body and all that fades like so far from what true love is. It was about hypersexuality. It was like a body count and numbers. And again, sex was a sport almost in my upbringing. And it was very unhealthy and traumatic. Now that I'm an adult and can look back and say, wow, man, I was sick. And that's how I look at it now. Like I was sick. And now I have a 14-year-old daughter, and I have to have these conversations and helping her to find her authentic self in Christ. and having to be accountable as the leader of my household and how I represent a God-fearing, loving husband after being a very hurt young man. And
So what do you think, like what was a big like revelation for you when you said, okay, I'm ready to, like, this is the woman that I'm gonna spend my life with? Like, what were some of the qualities, I guess, that really stood out about your wife that made you
yeah,
say, all these things in my past that I've been working on, like, like I see now the qualities and the characteristics that I know I want to build with in this person?
I think I had a lot of great women in my life,
Mm-hmm.
and I messed up a lot. And I'll be the first to admit that in my hurt places, I hurt a lot of people. And I pray every day that God has forgiven me for hurting those people. And if you're listening, I definitely ask for your forgiveness because I was a hurt person. But my wife, we were friends for a long time. I didn't think, and I say this all the time when I share, like, I didn't think that she was the one. And she's an incredible human, and she was an incredible friend.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that little boy that thought that he had to look a certain way and talk a certain way and act a certain way and dance a certain way and be a certain way didn't know that true love was in this word. My wife was someone that I could walk miles with in silence.
Do you feel like perhaps she brought out that sort of authenticity in you? Because when you're referring to like the little boy.
Yeah, I think she called my bullshit.
Okay. Yeah.
She was the friend that called my bullshit. I'll give you a funny story. I've always been an athlete and like a good looking kid, humbly. But I never heard no.
Yeah.
It wasn't a thing. And we went on a date as friends, not even a date. We just went out, and I thought I was going to go home with her. She was going to go home with me. And we show up to the door, and I'm slick, and I'm whatever, and I'm like, I think I'm going in the door. And I sat at the door, and she brought me a pillow and a blanket, and I had to be at work in like 2 hours. She said, "Have a good night." And I grabbed the pillow and the blanket, and I slept at work until I had to work in the morning. But
I'm laughing a little because I know Dusty. And she would have done that with such grace and elegance right there.
It was super graceful.
Yep.
And she just she has a way of saying no to me and letting me know when I'm in the wrong, even if it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, we have lots of uncomfortable conversations in my house. And we are culturally complete opposites. But she tries very hard to fill the spaces that she knows are very important to me culturally. She's a great helper, and she's a great partner. And she's a great friend. So nothing is ever perfect.
Right.
We struggle like everybody else. We're raising 4 children, and it's very difficult, and there's highs and lows, but there is consistency, and it starts with me. Like, I think all men should really try to be radically responsible for everything at home. Like, take radical responsibility and ownership that this kingdom is mine. You know, it's no one's fault, but it is my responsibility, you know?
Yeah.
And it's hard.
And be willing to, step into those shoes and say, I am responsible for everything under this
Everything
roof, the
under this roof.
well-being, the guidance, and to know that people are looking to you
Correct.
for that, and to know that the partner you've chosen is respectful of that and can reciprocate that when you might be in need of that same type of support.
Yeah.
See, I have to say that I think if more men were vulnerable enough to say something like that, maybe the word submit wouldn't be as difficult to digest.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, again, that's the submission comes when you're radically responsible for the home.
Right.
It happened in my house, and I was like, that's all I had to do? Like, take ownership for all of it? No doubt. And now I'm like, wow, like it almost gives you like a charge up. Like you just got the mushroom. And like it makes you feel like a giant.
Super Mario.
Yeah. You know, it makes you feel like a giant. Like, I took responsibility and accountability for everything here. And I don't even have to raise my voice anymore.
Right. And it overlaps, like listening to you speak about that, it overlaps in so many other areas of life. It overlaps with parenting. It overlaps with your professional relationships as well. There's so many dynamics that can benefit from that approach, where if you step into those shoes of responsibility, taking ownership for what you bring to the table, for what you allow others to bring to the table, and with that comes a more purposeful and a more functional working relationship. So, yeah, it's like the best example of a trickle-down effect. Like if you can step into a leadership role with someone that is, equally yoked and equally partnered, and you know that you're not, going to be dragging them by the feet along the way to make the relationship what you know it can be, then you can have a situation where every day, even with the highs and the lows, you can still show up with consistency because you know the foundation is strong.
Okay.
Yeah.
Junior? You're on the spotlight now.
I mean, I think we're all on the spotlight. But to answer the question from the initial point where you ask what are the barriers in forming a relationship or getting into a relationship, and just to echo Z's point, as men, I think it is at our utmost importance to see the physical. We are physical human beings, so our standards are pretty different than a woman's standards. A woman is much more robust when it comes to their standards. They think about emotions, they think about providing, they think about masculinity, they think about all of the things. For us as men, I think at the bare minimum, as long as you look good or as long as you're a baddie, like it's doors open. And that's why we oftentimes fall into cyclical relationships, is because the moment we get into a relationship, now this woman who has a standard beyond her being a beautiful woman, it now feels like a pressure to us. We're like, well, this is not what I signed up for. I just wanted you to be pretty, and I live my life, and we move on. So we oftentimes get into these situations where we're like, well, now you're pushing too hard. Now it's a little too far. And I think the word submission is not a fearful word. I think the problem with submission is that someone has to be wrong, right? And when you are submitting, it means that you are going to have to take accountability, right? Because submission is saying, hey, I am allowing you to take the leadership role at this point, which simply means you're going to delegate to me what needs to happen. And in delegation, when something goes wrong, someone has to be accountable.
Yeah, of course.
And oftentimes it's who it's delegated to that is the issue. So that's why, in a more like deeper sense, why submission is such a problem, because no one, and that goes for both men and women, wants to be the problem. Because though women are in this new age of, we don't need a man, yada, yada, yada. The reality is, if you do have a man in the house, the first person you're blaming is the guy. The guy's a problem. The guy did this. The guy did that. So you also, as a woman, it's hard for you to take accountability because it makes you feel incredibly submissive. You feel like you can't get out of certain things. I think what I face usually is when that comes up and saying you're wrong, it's how we deal with when you are wrong.
Wait a minute. Wait, hold on. Sorry. I'm going to interrupt. It's hard for us to take accountability in being wrong. Is that what you're trying to say? I'm trying to figure out. It's because of that
Yes.
dynamic.
Yes.
Oh, well, what if you're in a home where you're, as the woman, maybe this is a better question for you too. Sorry to interrupt. As a woman, let's say you didn't marry a man who really took over the reins of the home, and you are the one who's leading, and you are the one who's always admitting fault. Do you think as a woman that's going to be that brings out in a female who's like that, like tougher qualities?
I don't know. I mean, I think that's a very, subjective question and answer dynamic, because it really depends on the individual and what they're bringing with them to
Right.
the relationship, and what their triggers are, and how they react to things, and what their stagnant emotional patterns are that kind of come
Yeah.
up when they're dealing with things like that. But I think when I asked the question to you and Z, I was more thinking about like what Z touched on, like when you're interacting with people who could be a potential life partner for you, a potential wife for you. What are some of the things that you find difficult, just like in the pool of, people who you're interacting with? What are some of the things that you might be looking for, or that you want as far as qualities, but you may not be finding? Or you may feel like you're being like too rigid or stubborn based on like the box that you want someone to fit in. Like that's kind of, I was only thinking about that because
I think
going
I
through
answered
life,
the
we have
question.
we
I
have
just
so many
developed
relationships,
on it.
and how do you choose? Like, how do you know? Like, what is the point where you say, okay, this is someone I could build my life with?
I don't think we know. I think again, I don't think.
Well, you got to know at some point.
I mean, to
but
answer the question, I think I answered the question because I'm saying at surface level, as men, we oftentimes just see the physical.
You just
and that's
walk
it.
into it like
and
that.
once
Right.
we get to a point where it starts to feel like a pressure, and we're getting the full length of a woman, it's like, okay, stop. I'm saying, like, now that we're in relation, my biggest issue is knowing who is wrong and how to deal with that wrong. I think at that point I could safely say, aha, now we could have an adult conversation in that, okay, I'm wrong and I get that. And it's not, oh, you're wrong and I know you're wrong. And it's dealing with when someone is wrong, how we deal with that, how
So
we
a
remedy
communication
that. So
style.
for me, it's
Yeah.
a communication thing. And that's how I would probably light bulb go off and be like, maybe I should continue this. Because if at the bare minimum, say, okay, we meet and it's a physical thing for me, we get into relation, I feel the pushback, we have a conversation, and that communication is not seamless. And I'm not saying it has to be perfect, but seamless in the way where I see that there is some medium of, okay, we could grow into a better form of communication, then that's where the light bulb goes off for me. So that's how I developed into that part of the conversation.
I gotcha.
I think modern culture really sells counterfeit freedom, like 100%. I think communication is a muscle that you strengthen, because yes, my wife and I are able to walk in silence for a long time, but like a muscle, communication can only be strengthened with time.
Oh, yeah.
I think.
And very clear expectations
Absolutely.
about
I
what
agree.
works for you. And like hearing you say that I think that is a light bulb moment for males and females, anybody entering into any type of relationship. Because if you are met with the contention at the point where you have to have a difficult conversation with someone and you realize that, oh, they're a yeller, or, oh, they're a name caller, or, oh, I'm not going to talk about this and I'm going to leave the house person. And if that's not your style as far as rectification through conversation, then like for me, that's the biggest red flag, is if we are not communicating in a way that's complimentary, or if I say to you, I don't raise my voice and I don't respond well when other people raise their voice because it's not necessary, because my hearing is 100%. My vision might be crappy, but my ears work perfectly. Yeah. So there's no need for that. And also kind of letting go of that subjective interpretation of every single thing, like being able to step outside of things and be objective is really important for me as well. Like taking myself out of the center of whatever the issue is and taking the other person out of the center of whatever the issue is. And let's just focus on the issue itself and what are our parts that we're playing within that issue and how can we eradicate that? Because humans are always going to bring their stuff, their emotional stuff to the table, but sometimes the table has to be cleared of that. And we just need to deal with objectively, what is this thing? And then you can work your way back toward, okay, now that objectively we've dealt with it, now my emotions are a little bit calmer because they weren't involved in the discussion and rectifying the issue. But now we can still talk about that. Well, this is why I felt that way. And I'm so glad we got that out of the way. And now, you know, I felt sad because it reminded me of this or it triggered this. And it makes the emotional part more fluid after the objective issue has been dealt with. And that's difficult for a lot of people to do. And like you said, conversation is a muscle that you have to strengthen every day. You have to practice having good conversation, no matter who it's with. It can be with your mom, with your friend, whatever. But that's something that people do not put time and effort and energy into developing and being effective communicators, especially with the people they're closest to.
Yeah, I think it's the hardest.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out which men have sat with you and had these. I mean, how many men have you known that have really sat down and been able to have that in-depth of a conversation about the way that they feel?
I think it's a challenge.
More than
Again,
one. I wouldn't be in the relationship I'm in right now if I didn't have that.
To be honest, if then with all those communication styles and on a personal level, that's where the hiccup comes in for me. Mm-hmm. That's where we have to step back and understand that that's not a leadership role we need to be in. To your point, with your wife, I think she was a friend. She called you out and made you feel uncomfortable in BS, but she also still allowed you to know that you are still the man, right? And I respect you 1,000%. You don't have the capacity to have that emotional conversation, but either way, she got you to the point to let go and have those emotional conversations. Even Liz's point, it's like, yes, and to your point, it's a muscle that you grow. But I think as a female, that's a leadership role in the household that a woman might have to take on to say, I'm probably going to have to press on this a little bit more, but I have to do it in respect. And that for me is where things get a little uncomfortable. I don't mind someone shouting, even if it's uncomfortable for me. And I express to you that, hey, I don't do well with shouting because I don't do well with shouting. I don't do well with confrontation. But if you could hear that and go, okay, respectfully, he doesn't like that. I have to figure out a way to let him hear me. And I'm going to give you grace that you might shout again, right? And you might raise your voice again because I can't expect you to change off of one thing I said when you've been doing this for 30-something years or 20-something years or however long you've been living your life in that way. So for me, it's just a matter of, yes, communication, but also like respect, understanding both parties and knowing what makes them uncomfortable. Do it, but still be a person enough to say, you know what? I'm wrong.
I think you still can respect and understand and also expect change. Because in a relationship, you're growing to be with a person. And how much change is able to happen within an individual is something that, you know, both parties in the relationship have to assess and say, I'm going to stick with it or I'm going to move on.
I hope
but
I
think
didn't say
you
that
definitely can expect, no matter how long someone's had a habit, if they're willing to put in the work to be malleable, not where they're changing their whole identity, but where that respect and understanding then equal different behavior.
No, absolutely. I'm saying I understand that, but I can't expect it to happen overnight.
No, of course not.
I can't expect it to. And also, I'm not going to be dumb enough to think it won't ever happen again. That's unrealistic expectation because even people in Christ, we go back to sin over and over and over again. Yeah. It's an unrealistic expectation. So yes, I do expect you to change. And if after 4 years, there is not even a slight change, and hey, we are unevenly yoked, it's time to move on. But I do expect some change, but I can't expect it overnight. And I have to give you the same grace you gave me in respecting how I'm slowly opening up to the emotional side of myself to talk to you about things that I probably haven't even dealt with as a child.
So actually, now, hold on. I actually have a question. Sorry. You know what? No, you've been waiting. You go ahead.
He's been waiting.
I think the conflict and the grace space, at least from my personal experience and sitting with like couples therapy, is I think where it gets challenging is, yes, my wife gave me all of the things that you mentioned, but she came with her own luggage of emotional imbalance because of what respect in her house was and what a man in her house looked like or didn't look like, So culturally being from different spaces and her upbringing and her relationship with her father as a child and my relationship with my mother and my family growing up, this became and still a challenge something that we table often is trying to understand the root, to see the fruits. That soil that you're bringing a pot from Minnesota, Midwestern Minnesota, with a pot from the Caribbean of the Dominican Republic, completely different cultures, repotting them in Florida with 4 children and trying to have them coexist. This pot of soil never saw freezing snow and, her relationship with her father and the way he spoke to her and how the dynamic there. And this person never saw a man that was like I am or that communicated how I communicate. So it becomes a big challenge. I laugh now, but in our sessions with our marriage counselor, she's like, you guys drift about the pettiest things, and we have to like reel it back in to a space where it's like you were saying, like a common ground. Yeah. Like, what are we really talking about? Because you could get lost in all the petty and all the BS, and you're not even tackling the real issue at hand. And I think it's a defense mechanism almost, to like you like subconsciously lose yourself or drift in the real root issue. Is the water missing?
Yeah.
How is the intimacy okay? Is the quality time okay? Are you sleeping enough? You know what I'm saying? Are you listening to her enough? You know what I'm saying? When's the last time you went on a date night? Like, there's a reason why he's so frustrated. There's a reason why she is so frustrated. You know what I mean? There's a reason why the conflict happened, and it always comes back to the root.
Yeah, but here's my question. I mean, once you knew that the pots of soil were different, right?
Yeah.
So you knew that you've used the word imbalance. So you knew that there was an imbalance in her life from her childhood. When you take that on, isn't it sort of your job as the partner to not trespass on those things? And I'm not talking about you specifically. Yeah. I'm talking like in a generality.
I don't think...
When you take somebody into your life and you know the damage that comes with them and you're vulnerable enough to speak about your damage, isn't it our jobs to not trespass on the things that hurt that person? Like, let's say her father yelled at her. I don't know if this is to be true or anything. You would know, I don't. But let's say that was something that triggered her into a response, that a wound. Isn't it your job to not trespass on that and to work on yourself to do those things?
Yeah, but
If you
know,
choose,
if
you're
you know, or if you even know,
or if you even know,
you know, there's a lot of things I get. You don't know what you don't know, and sometimes I think I know, but I don't really know how deep the wound was. You know, I'm 100% positive that I probably thrown salt on wounds that I didn't even know existed.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, or used words that I didn't even know I wasn't supposed to use. You don't know until you know.
I am not married, so there's not much I could dig into.
It's not just about marriage, though.
Marriage,
It's
relationships
relationships.
But for me, I mean, to your point, and that's why I try to sniff it out as early as possible before I go deep in.
Yeah. As you
it's
should.
It's a mutual respect.
That's what I'm
the
saying.
same baggage that you come in with is the same baggage I'm coming in with.
Yeah.
That's right.
And if you speak up and say, hey, this hurts, I am not promising you that I won't do it again, but what I promise you is that I'll try. But hear me out. My trauma is allowing me to do the things that hurt your trauma. Right. So can we talk about this? And yes, if you are wrong, it's okay. Say it. You're wrong. I am not going to keep digging and say, you're wrong and this is why you're wrong. And I think for me, that's an immediate red flag.
Yeah.
If we could have an adult conversation and you tell me I'm wrong and I admit it and you keep digging it into me that I'm wrong, then I would never admit to you.
How can you be more wrong?
I would never admit to you that I'm wrong.
Can we make you more
I'm
wrong?
running away because now that's a bigger trauma. Now you're developing a trauma in the relationship.
And oftentimes people's emotional trauma is not their current reality.
Yeah.
So they're reliving trauma that is not their reality. It might be their emotional, base. It might be their emotional starting point.
Yeah.
But it's not their reality. And everybody deals with that. You have a fear of something that is not actually a tiger chasing you, but still you go into fight or flight with the same physical and chemical responses in your body because of the relationship. And a lot of times people's emotional trauma is not their reality. So then you're navigating things that are not real, that are not tangibly real. Not to say their emotions aren't valid, but they're not tangibly real. So then you make a choice. Yes, we're going to get through this together. If this is something that you're dealing with, I'm going to be mindful of that. I'm going to be respectful of that. I'm going to tiptoe around that, not in a bad way, because sometimes that has a negative connotation, like tiptoeing around. But I mean, this is a choice that you make depending on who you choose to partner with. And it is also someone's choice to partner with someone who has not begun to do the internal work to resolve those issues within themselves. Who does not want to.
Right.
Absolutely.
So that's a choice you have to make, like you said, very early on. Is this person even willing to do the work that's required to resolve these things? Or is this something that I'm willing to accept that they're not willing to do or not ready and or willing?
So this has actually gotten off into a tangent that I didn't even intend for it to go to. What I really would like to figure out, because when I decided this would really be the ending topic, is what relationships mean for men, not what qualities they're looking for, but what they mean for them. Okay, so hold on one second.
About meaning without qualities, right?
Right. So I recently had a conversation with a man that I have so much respect for, who actually will be coming on and doing one of the Let's Break Bread segments. And I do a lot of interviewing before we have a podcast. I try to talk to various men and get their opinions and to figure out, I'd like to stay sort of in tune to how people that I at least am able to pull are feeling. And he said for him that marriage saved his life. Now, the man is a brilliant doctor. He's maybe one of the most interesting people I have ever met. And he said that his wife saved him because he was a people pleaser and he was like running himself into the ground, exhausted, trying to make people happy. And she looked at him and she said, come on, I'm going to give you a family and we are going to focus and put your focus on our family. So that ended up saving him, he said. I mean, he just outright said she saved him. And so he said he was no longer scattered all over the place. He was able to focus. He said church became the most, important part of their life and their family life. So what does your relationship as a man, what do relationships do for you? Like, as opposed to being a single man, let's say, or to not have a relationship at all, being on your own totally, because we're supposed to be married or we're supposed to have a partner.
Yeah.
So what does that do for you?
They fulfill you. They ground you.
Right.
They give you your space they give you your spot on the soil,
Okay.
to dig your roots deep and let your branches grow, and see the fruit that comes from you being rooted in the Word of God, you being rooted in your consistency at home and your responsibilities being cared for, and your wife being home or coming home and nurturing you and and loving you and feeding you, and your kids being happy, and it's fulfillment. I think it's the peace that only comes from God. Both pieces, peace and peace, that
Right.
all men desire. I think the desire is to have a companion that completes you. Peace and peace. I like that.
Right.
That was good.
And Junior, is there a part of you that sort of chases that feeling, or are you sort of happy?
I mean, the question that you ask is very simple.
Yeah.
It doesn't even need a podcast conversation. I think everyone requires relationship, and that relationship is going to change your life, period, right? Whether it's you realize that you're not yoked or you are yoked. I think the desire to want companionship is, there are extenuating circumstances. There are people who have gone through relations and feel like they need to be alone. I get it. But I think all of us on this earth, even if it's as simple as friendship, we all desire relation. We all want some companionship. I personally thought this was a conversation based around relationship, yes, and how we feel about it. But a large part of that is, what are the characteristics of it? How do we get to that point, especially something as meaningful as a intimate relationship, as a wife? Personally, yes, I desire a relationship. I want a family.
Right.
I want my life to be changed like your friend. I want a woman who says, hey, come on, let's focus on that is truly a desire, I personally think, of every man.
Right.
Sometimes their trauma might skew their perspective. Sometimes their, other relationships might just like turn them off or turn them away. But I think at the core of us, men aren't no one in this room is meant to be alone, and especially a man. We can't even deal with our own emotions.
Yeah.
This does deserve a podcast because we are at an all-time
I'm not-
high in society of
Rachel,
divorce rates.
Hear
So
me when I say
that
I'm
is-
not
yeah.
saying the topic
No, I
in
understand.
general doesn't deserve a podcast.
Yeah.
I'm saying the question that you just posed,
Right.
saying that you spoke with someone and this is what they say,
Mhm.
is what you intend on. I'm saying that we have to flush these things out for us to get to a point to see the bigger value of why. Because the truth is, we all desire relation. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying this doesn't deserve a podcast. Obviously, we're here. I'm saying
No, I know.
that simple topic, the answer is simple. We all desire a relationship.
Yeah, and I think what you say, like, we are definitely facing an epidemic of.
That's where this was. That's what I meant by.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you're both on the same track. Back to the ground and saying like that counterfeit freedom that we're bombarded with, because I'm gonna again just put the blame on the speed of life and social media, again, bombarding us with options and counterfeit freedom and counterfeit faces and unauthentic reality of what it is to have a relationship. Like, I don't know, growing up, you didn't have, a million girls half naked on a social stream or the ability to swipe and like, and it's a distraction. And again, we are hardwired, and it's almost like a burden for men because we are hardwired to the physical attraction, and I think it deters us, Just speaking from a personal perspective again, I think the best thing for my marriage was getting off the social media. I think I needed to reflect with self, and I needed to honor my wife because it became pornography to me. It is an easy way to lose sight of your soul, one, and your significant other.
It's also part of like that continual process of figuring out who you are, because that can shift so quickly, and then you realize how you spend your moments and how you spend your days. That is who you've become.
Yeah.
So that can happen when you've already found your life partner, when you are already in a relationship or in a marriage, and then you realize you've become a different version of yourself in a matter of weeks or months, and then you have to say, hold on, what am I doing? Let me, do what I need to do. If it's, therapy, if it's taking social media out of the equation, whatever it is for you individually, there has to be some type of, return to center, like your own center, so that you realize you're constantly figuring out who you are.
Right.
But now, or at some point, it becomes within the parameters of that relationship, who am I?
Yeah.
Am I still showing up in a way where my family can respect me? Am I still showing up in a way as a version of myself that is, looked at as a leader in my household? Or do the people in my own household look at me like a clown, or like someone who has no discipline, or someone who they can't rely on, someone who's, coming home drunk, and if there's an intruder in the house, they're not even alert enough to react and protect. So all those things, the evolving process of just being a human and living your life, you can easily become a version of yourself that is no longer aligned with what you signed up for. And I think that happens so quickly, like you said, about the pacing of the world we live in now, and how fast things are come at us and how quickly they're available. We find that people make decisions in a rash way, like getting married to someone just because they look good, or just because, everything in the columns line up, but they don't know who that person is, and that person doesn't know who they are as an individual. So then you literally have two strangers that realize in about 3 or 4 years that choice was the wrong choice, and they are not compatible at the deeper levels that are required.
Who you displayed isn't who you depict in real life.
Wolf in sheep clothes.
Yeah.
Wolf in sheep clothes.
The enemy.
And just as quick as they got into it, they can just turn away and eject themselves from it.
You said all the nice things. You said you were so clean when you lived on your own. All these things that you really have to sit with when you're in relationship with someone.
So here's why, I posed the simple question, as you put it. I think that because of all of these outside influences that we have, because you're like spot on in my mind today, because what you're saying is really true. We often forget our why. So when I posed the question to you two, I feel like, or when I guess my question, the second one, because it was simple, is because I think that we need to know our why first and foremost before we do what and how.
I think simple is so good, and it was a great question.
Why has to be the root.
Yeah.
And until you know why you want a partner, or until you know why you need to be married, or you need to know within yourself first. Yeah. And only then can you start to look at external qualities.
I think that yes.
Okay.
That is true. And I agree with that. but a lot of times people's why is not positive.
It's
a lot of times
never-
their
but
why
that's the thing.
When it's a
reality.
is
That's my thing, Liz. It's the why cannot be good if it's not two things: grounded in Christ or grounded in truly digging deep in
Yeah.
yourself and knowing
Yeah.
who you are. And oftentimes,
That's the why.
but that's my thing. That's my thing, Ray. The why doesn't come that simple for men. We are wired to see the physical. Or why will always start with how a woman looks. So again, it is not that simple. We just want companionship
Right.
based on how a woman looks.
or the why could be because I don't want to be alone.
'Cause I don't
or the
wanna
why
be
could be
alone.
because all my
It is
friends
not
got
that
girlfriends
simple.
and wives. I need one.
Relationship is not that simple, Ray. That's a truth. And that's why we have so much high divorce rate, because simplifying relation is not good. We can't just say, you have to know why you want to be in a relationship. Well, then doggone it, I don't want to be lonely.
Right.
I don't want to be like my family.
Right.
None of my family is married. So let's talk personal, right? I don't want to be like them. That's my why. So now, because that's my why, I'm just going to jump into a relationship for the sake of it. I'm going to get married for the sake of it. And I'm going to tough this out no matter how I feel for the sake of it. That's wrong. Next thing you know,
That's your ego's
suicide.
why.
No,
Not your rooted self's why.
But if
no,
you
that
have
is
not
my rooted
uncovered
self
that
why.
yet, if that's your baseline and you have not realized that yet, if that is where you are in your emotional state and in your own, mental reality, if you can't see beyond that yet, if that is your ego's why, but if that is also all that you are able to process, you don't know that's your ego's why until you've done the work to figure that out.
You know that's your reality.
Yeah,
right?
you can only
At
meet
that point,
yourself.
this is it.
Yeah, you can only approach that topic of relationship from where you are. And a lot of people are there. They cannot see. They do not have the capacity. They haven't even opened their eyes to the possibility of seeing beyond. They don't even know what that means.
I
Don't
think
even know what it
their
looks
ego's
like.
why.
Again, it doesn't exist in their mind. So again, they're just, it's right here. That's it.
Right.
And for me, it can't be that simple. And I'm not. This is a perfect example of relation, right? You can't see me as saying you're wrong. And I'm not digging into like you're wrong. I'm saying, hey, Ray, it's not that simple for me. I can't just answer that question. There's a lot to break down. I am now a grown man and I'm seeing a lot of things and I understand a lot of things. And there's so much trauma and emotional stuff behind that. So it's not that simple for me to answer that question, right? It could be easy for Z. It could be easy for your friend. It could be easy for even Liz, but it's not going to be that easy. And Liz said it right. It's always going to be a matter of who we're talking about, who is in the room.
There was a lady, I was at church. We had like our harvest dinner at church last night. And I was talking to a lady just at the little hors d'oeuvre table. And we were talking about relationship. Like, it was just so weird, like such a weird tangent, especially considering we were talking about this today. But she's like, I've been married to my husband. My husband, Ed, we've been married for 42 years. And it's the second marriage for both of us. And she said, so there's something to be said about number two. You know where you want your towel to be hung. You know what you want to do before bed. You want to watch TV or you want to read. You figure these things out about the type of partnership that you want to have, and then you do your best to make it better the second time around if you have that opportunity. And I think it ties into what you're saying. It's like you don't realize what you don't want until you've gone through it and you say that's that. But it might not have even been on your radar until you experience it and say, oh, wow, that is definitely something I do not want.
Right.
Or you realize that is not the kind of person that I, want to be engaging with. Yeah. But sometimes it takes, it's the hindsight is 20/20 thing.
Yeah, I want to tag on Junior's. He said, "You don't see what I see," right? Back to intimacy. Into me, I see. So I think men, we're designed to lead with love, not ego. Love being God. God is love. So when we submit to God and let the ego go and we join in relationship or in a covenant, not a contract, I want to look at it from a covenant perspective. It is our duty to lead from our leader, which is Jesus Christ, you know? So I think when you look into self and you see he who is in you, again, I don't think that's why I said earlier, I don't think we know. I think when we look into self, he shows you who the partner is. And I think you will find that when you continue to search him, I think he has the companion and the answer. At least in my experience, the more I submitted to the word, the more he showed me not what I wanted, but what I needed. Because again, what I wanted, I don't want to make it sound wrong. What I wanted wasn't my wife. What I needed and what I love is what she provides for me.
Yeah, that's great. Listen, this is why, for me, I'm working on the Christ side first.
That's the best.
Because the truth is, if I could still be unfaithful to Christ,
right. I hear you. It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier.
Listen, if I could be unfaithful to Christ, which most of us still are, even while we're in relation. But the truth is, it's easy for me to even submit to God because I know who he is. I know his character, and I still do the opposite. What makes me feel like I could be a husband that would completely not do the same thing to my wife? So that's why it's not simple for me, right? It's a packed issue.
No, I know.
And you have to be
so
ready.
hard.
Yeah, you have to be ready.
Yeah.
So
and you'll know when you are. For some people, that doesn't come until way later in life.
Way later.
Exactly.
Even when you think you are, sometimes you're not.
Yeah, you still ain't.
I say I do every morning, and some days I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You
so
know?
We're actually also joined here by Cole, who's
Hey, Cole.
popped in.
Colo.
And I don't know if you've kind of been listening to what we've been saying out there, but so I'll tell you, I feel like the younger generation has grown up with a little bit of a jaded perspective. Again, based on all the social media that's bombarding them.
Options.
And so I'm curious, just before we do our we takes, about your personal opinion about relationships in this day and time, and what they mean to you, and what you're kind of, in general as a man, how you view that.
Yeah. I was listening a little bit, but I don't know. We were talking about this when you guys first came in, but I think like social media and everything online really amplifies all the bad, because I do still feel like there is good people out there, and there are people that want like a real marriage and like know that there's one person for them and they're supposed to be with that person, and there's not so much because like the hookup culture, I guess, because you guys have talked about that before. But like I have good friends that I'll go to church and like really just want to find a good wife, and I know that there's people out there. Like I have friends that have been in relationships for 8 years. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's not like I don't think like we're like doomed, I guess, but like I think that you got to know what you see online and like kind of take it with a grain of salt. I don't think that it makes up the majority at all. I still think there's good people out there, and there still are guys and girls like trying to get closer to the Lord and live the life, like have the marriage that they're supposed to, like as that the Bible talks about. So I don't know. I always think like the positive and focus on that, but like because I think if I can get myself in line, like get it like as far as like, because lust is a huge thing now. Like you go on social media, we talked about this before, me and Z, but like you go on social media and you see everything. Yeah, you can open up and get super close to like
color.
Exactly. But I do feel like it's like a big like trust in God thing, but it's like when you get in line and you are out of lust and you're like ready for your wife, you will meet your wife, and you're not gonna, you know what I mean? Because when you're not surrounding yourself with those things, you'll find the person too, I guess. Like if you're going out and like trying to hook up, you're gonna find someone that's very similar to you. It's kind of where you put yourself. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess I think of it from a more positive standpoint, but yeah, social media makes everything look really bad, obviously. And
Just look, it makes it very difficult for us.
Yeah.
'Cause, again, why hardwired to look? The last thing you want to, like Ben and Jerry's, too many options. I can't even go to Cheesecake Factory and look at the menu. I got options.
it's a tough place.
It's a tough
That's
place.
a huge menu.
It's a huge.
ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a book.
You go on Instagram, you got a menu of everything and everyone, and you don't even have to be yourself. You could be something else.
Exactly.
You could.
Yeah.
It's just it's the enemy at full strength. The prince of the air creeping in our homes and in our children's homes.
Sometimes it's not the enemy. Sometimes it's just us.
But again, the
We
enemies
give the devil way too much power sometimes. Sometimes it's us.
but we
'Cause
plug them in every night.
why are you going to the Cheesecake Factory if you know there's so many options?
Right.
When you could simply go to a restaurant because you know you like Italian food, stick to Italian food. Go to an Italian restaurant.
But again, culture has us on devices.
But that's what I'm saying. Yes, a large part of that is what we have access to. But also, if we know that we are people in Christ, and I'm not saying that like I'm holier than thou.
Yeah.
I fully make my own sins too.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm not giving the power to the enemy because the truth is it's me. Right? I know that if I go to the Cheesecake Factory, I'm going to get a lot of options. So I deliberately go to the Cheesecake Factory thinking like, you know what? Even though there's so many stuff on the menu, I'm only going to order a burger.
That's
Knowing
discipline.
doggone well I'm going to want French fries on the side. Knowing well I might want a soda as well. So now it's just a matter of what you're feeding, right? And
Discipline.
that comes in to you and Christ.
Discipline, disciples, discipline. And discipline is difficult. If not, we'd all have what we want all the time. 6-pack abs, muscles, 6'9".
Well, that you should stay disciplined.
Discipline is hard. But discipline is hard,
Yeah.
Like leg day is hard. Everybody wants to, look a certain way or do a certain thing or, but discipline is the hardest part of that, is saying I do every day. That discipline is hard. Fasting is hard.
Yeah, but it's back to the point where you don't even know until you have to experience those things in terms of relationship. Again, yes, we go to the restaurant because we do want to eat, but we also go to the restaurant knowing what we feel for and what is possible. The truth is, we have to ensure that we know what we want and we go there for specifically what we want. Relationship is just like that. We need to sieve out what we need to sieve out, go through our non-negotiable, find that one person, and constantly, like a muscle, work on those things that we know that we are falling short of. Maybe it's lust. Lust, the Bible says, just flee fully from it. Don't even try to remedy it. Flee fully from it. Maybe that means no social media.
Yeah.
Maybe that means don't go to a bar. Maybe that means don't go out. But it's just not that easy to say, this is my wife or relationship, because there's so much that is packed with who you are as a person and what you're going to uncover as you constantly grow, that your whys are going to change.
Yeah, especially if you've never been challenged in a certain way by a particular kind of person.
1000%.
Then, you've been your whole life compartmentalizing these things until you're met with a friction that reveals what's underneath the surface.
Somebody says no.
Exactly. When it's
you're-
unable to hide it anymore,
Yep.
cover it up anymore, and it's just out there and now you have to deal with it. And then, of course, you grow from that. And then, of course, your choices are informed by that experience as well. And then the other person now
Transformed.
also has more information
Yeah.
to make a choice with.
Correct.
So it is a lot. But I think overall, in hearing all three of you speak about, what the importance of relationships and what they mean and what they can potentially offer, once the right one is found, the right relationship and the type of companionship. I think there's definitely hope in that and positivity in that and light in that. It just doesn't look the same for every. Obviously, it's different for every human being because we all have our own individual experiences. But I think even the pathway to get there is so varied and so subjective that it's really important, I think, like how we started, to know who you are and to constantly be open to knowing how God is changing you and working in your life so that you're aware of who you are in relationship to Christ at every point in your life. Because if you're not paying attention to that, God could literally be informing your spirit and sending the Holy Spirit to you like, hey, I'm trying to tell you, you need to do something different.
Absolutely.
You need to look this way.
Yeah.
You need to run fast in the opposite direction. But then you're like, no, that's not who I am. But then God is showing you like there's a huge shift that needs to happen. Or, you need to refocus and double down. There's always that growth that if you're not aware of what that looks like and what that feels like in your relationship to being Christ-focused, then you might miss something that is going to open that opportunity for you to find your wife or your husband or your life partner.
Is that your we take?
That's my we take.
Z, do you have a we take?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna we take with an image of a boat and an anchor. I think the anchor is Christ and the boat is our relationships. And there's storms on the ocean, and you have to weather the storms and keep that anchor down. Because when it comes up, we all drift, and our desires will drift, and our destiny won't look like what we want them to look if we drift from the way. I want to take with me more prayer with my companion in my covenant, and I wish that everybody found a partner to pray with and to love and to endure this life with till the kingdom comes. Had an amazing time this season, having difficult discussions.
Yeah.
And I look forward to climbing still. And it's brought me lots of joy to share space with everyone here. So I'm super grateful for everyone's takes and truth, and love you guys.
Love you too.
Yeah, I love you too.
I guess I'll go. I think this one, for me, more than all of them, is a little bit heavier than usual. Because as a Christian man, your why is going to always be rooted in God. And the Bible talks about the principle of marriage, and that's a ministry in itself. And that's also like, breaking generational curse is that bond, that covenant that you can have with a wife. My we take, and I'm going to use what you just said, just in a different way. For me, I want to be on the boat with my wife, but I want to know that Christ is on that boat as well. And we both have our eyes on him. So even if it drifts, I know that we are okay. Because no matter what storm comes, if we keep our eyes on him, this storm is going to feel like a beautiful sunshine over our heads. That simply means we both have to watch what we feed, because we can't keep our eyes on God if we're feeding the things that are sinful. It means that we both have to be accountable. It means that we both have to put aside things that are going to cause us to go against each other, like our trauma, like our family experiences, like our cultural experiences, and understand that we are on this boat together to bring two pots and rooted in this one boat with both of our eyes on Christ. And honestly, that's my we take. Also, thank you guys for this whole season. You guys have broken so many barriers for me personally. I've gone home and gone over the conversations in my head. I think you guys remind me that I talk up a good game all the time. You know, I'm a tough shell, and I keep a clean slate for most cases. And you guys have broken it down for me to say, hey, bro, like, there are things behind there that you might want to like crack open and communicate. So I appreciate even the listeners for joining us, because that's the accountability there.
Yeah.
You know, we
Yeah.
speak, but we also speak for and with you, never against. So that accountability put a lot of accountability on us as well. So thank you guys for a great season. And I love each of you guys individually, especially. And yeah, let's continue to chat a little bit more.
So I'm glad you got to the why. Usually we're in sync. Jesus. Yeah. So that's the why for all relationships, right? The way that the Bible directs us, that we need each other. And that's always at the root of, I think, everything. And I think that's why so many things have started to sort of go wrong in society, is that we've forgotten. So I'm really grateful for this season. My we take is from this particular episode is that we definitely have to choose, as women, the right leader for our home, and as men, the right partner to support us. I mean, as men, I'm not a man, but as men, you guys. But this season has been really eye-opening for me. I have learned a lot. So I'm just absolutely grateful for the experience and for the even differences of opinion. I usually have people who have different opinions than me, so I tend to shy away when there's conflict. But, you know, here we are, 4 people in a room, sometimes 5. And you can't just shut down. You can't just walk away, or you can't just people please, which is that's where I go to. I go to people pleasing. So it's made me face certain truths about myself or other people, and I'm grateful that I was able to come to those truths in these sessions. So thank you all so much for tuning in.
Cole, what's your we take?
I don't know. The we take, I'd probably say, I don't know. I always go back to like trusting God, and it's like when you can't find your wife, that and it's as bad as it looks, the rapture will happen, we'll be gone. You know what I mean? Like, I always think God wouldn't have us here if He didn't have a plan. So just optimistic, and we'll be out of here by then. You know yeah. I mean, I think that's my we take. I just think it's just trusting God, and then do what you're supposed, like, keep working to be better, and it all falls in line. I think that's just as simple as it gets. That's how it's made. But I don't know.
For sure.
Anyway, we will see you all soon. A couple of new faces. I have 2 new ladies that are going to be coming on for the season to talk about girl topics. I'm going to miss Liz more than she can even know, but I hope she's going to come on and be a guest.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yep. So
Please don't go.
So and we'll see Z back
What a
in
lovely
future
serenade.
seasons too.
Yeah.
So thank you all so much for
Thank
your
you.
time and for listening and for your honesty. And we love you all.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Love you guys.
Peace.